Hello, 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 everyone. It is Christina George, and I am back for another night of Paranormal Connections radio show, along with my co-host down below. Hey, Chad, how you doing?
I'm doing better, that's for sure. Absent
Yeah.
last time, but you know what they say, stuff happens, I guess, huh?
Well,
But,
yeah. I mean, it was a little crazy. I heard that you kind of cracked your head.
oh yeah, well yeah, that's today. It's gonna take a little more than a blow to the head to keep me from coming, showing up. So I may not be all there, but I'm here. Either way,
But you're here, right? That's all that matters. All
this
right.
is why I keep coming.
Also, everybody, you're going to see to the side of me. I never know if it's the left or the right when you guys are looking at it, but to the side of me, you see these two handsome men on the side by side next to Chad and I. And those are going to be our guests this evening. We've got Tony Rathman and Ron Yacovetti. So everybody has been messaging me since I put this show up. This is something different. A lot of us in the field, we know, about EVPs, we know about ITC, but these two guys are taking the whole ghost box software Ovulus to a whole nother level. And when I say to a whole nother level, guys, this is this is something pretty amazing. I've been going over clips that I've been sent that we are actually going to share tonight on the show. Uh, Yes, this is different. Hey, Caroline, nice to see you. Hey, Sparky, thanks for joining. As you guys start to join in, I see that we have more people joining in tonight. I know a lot of people have questions because a lot of you have been private messaging me, asking me things, and since I really don't know, because I actually just kind of came around seeing this. Tony and I have actually been friends for many, many years, him and his wife. And so they've been doing, the ghost box and all that kind of stuff, investigations using and videotaping for as long as I've known them. And then for about over a year, he just kind of like dropped off. And then I was following his page, and all of a sudden, he was having this, all of these, I have a special announcement coming soon. And I'm like, oh, okay, I got to figure out what's going on, And then pretty soon I started seeing him sharing about what we're going to be talking tonight. And so, since I am really not the expert in this, and I've got both of them here, we are going to talk about what they have developed and what this really means for investigators like you and I and our investigations. So, Tony and Ron, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I am so excited about tonight's show. Oh, hold on. Sorry, guys. Sorry. All right,
There
we're
you go.
back.
Muting the audio, guys.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Well, I,
Well, thank
I
you for having
think in order to explain what this is, I'd really like to turn it over to Ron, because Ron and Lourdes literally brought back into today's society a method that was used prior. And that's how this whole thing began. So I want to let Ron, since like I said, him and Lourdes really brought DRV back into the 20th century, and then we can expand how that went from DRV to Staticom. But that's where we should start.
well, I
Absolutely.
appreciate that. I appreciate that. So, one of the ways, and I'll rewind quickly, that it became Staticom from DRV was because Lourdes and I were smart enough to realize we had an opportunity to work with Tony and Sharia Rathman, and that progress was inevitable by doing so. They've been priceless to the process in the time that they've been involved in it. And I think that the whatever we're able to attain with this would not have been possible without them. So we're super grateful for that.
Thank
What we did was we looked at ITC as enthusiasts. I'm not a builder. I didn't build ghost boxes. I would buy them. I understand how they work or supposed to work and use them. And I never built them. If I was using a welder that often, I would be high-fiving you with fewer fingers. So I looked at how I could dive more into ITC and learn about it, and I came across a lot of stuff from Europe. Dr. Annabelle Cardoso, who sat with Marcello Bacci, Friedrich Jurgensen, and these are all people who were pioneers of EVP and ITC. Friedrich Jurgensen was the father of direct radio voice, which came from EVP research. And I'm looking at Lourdes, and I went, why is nobody doing this? They were having longer, cleaner, uninterrupted messages without the same brevity you get from a ghost box, and I couldn't understand it. So we started studying it. I reached out to Dr. Annabelle Cardoso. I read her books. We communicate. We still do. And we brought back this method, which is just north of the purity of EVP, which is voices out of thin air, just using the white noise on a vacant radio station. We tried heterodyning frequencies, blending them, running tone generators in it through mixing boards. You name it, we tried it. We had an opportunity to get involved with a software component, and we did for a little while. Then we actually abandoned it and went back to doing the pure form of the white noise with the radio, and then went back to the software and started reworking and retooling stuff. And that's where at some point along the way, from doing a weekly podcast and becoming great friends with Tony and Cherie, they got involved. And man, that was like I said, that was adding rocket fuel to what was already seemingly going somewhere, and it's been phenomenal. But that's pretty much what we did. We took direct radio voice, which is not sweeping, it's not a box, it's not a device, it's a method of just using the pure white noise and something called stochastic resonance with the white noise. And we were astounded at what they were getting in Europe with it, and couldn't believe, other than the TV had not shown it, that it was more of a discipline, why it wasn't being done. And so that's how we got to the point where this thing became recurring. For 4 years we were doing it, and then boom, Team Rathman, t-shirts, things are taking off. Go.
Yeah, those are and thank you, Ron, for those compliments. But you and Lourdes did the initial work. I wasn't even familiar with DRV when we went on the 4-mansion tour and got to see it. But the second I heard it, I'm like, this is not a spirit box. This was true communication, full sentences, no reverb, no echo, no nothing. You would hear their voice as they were sounding. You didn't have the effects, the artifacts of different things. But the one area that kind of worried me was the name itself. And the name came from the people that used it: Friedrich Jurgensen, Marcello Bacci, Dr. Annabelle Cardoso, all the people that Ron mentioned. But that it literally used a radio, a world band radio set to a non-transmitting radio station. So all you had was static. Does that work? Absolutely it does, because Ron did it for years. Cherie and I did it. It does work. But any scientific-minded person or any skeptics going to throw two things at you. They're going to say, A, you're picking up stray radio, and the fact that it sort of answers your question, or you think that it answers your question, you're probably getting stray radio. Or the other answer is, oh, it's warbles. You just think you're hearing voice. I wanted that out of the picture. So that was some of the progress we made, and the radio is no longer in the equation. There is no component that produces voice, speech, nothing. It is broadband white noise, and in that broadband noise are the voices we're pulling up.
Okay, so one thing I know when I'm seeing the clips is that on a lot of, they are very, very clear, for sure. Again, listening to a lot of spirit boxes. Now, mind you, I have a lot of friends in the paranormal. All of them have some type of tweak of their own, ghost box, because everybody is, making them now. So I've seen a lot of different ones, and they can be very echoey, they can be very staticky. Some that do sweep, it can be very random. I mean, I've noticed that sometimes when we're investigating, we're asking questions, it's shooting out, answers, but it's not really answering anything that we're asking.
Yeah, there's an experience that I had. Oh, sorry, Christine, I didn't mean that.
No, go ahead.
That we were investigating it. It had been a morgue at one point in time. Anyway, there's a lot of debris on the floor, and I swept my foot across the floor, scuffed it on accident, and out of that noise it made very similar to your white noise. There was audible words that you heard out, just like when I was dragging my foot across the floor. So it produced a similar noise to what you're talking about, and that's really interesting. There is a certain what is it, a dB pitch or something about that static that allows them to. And I used to have these theories on it, like whatever you're dealing with doesn't have a voice box. So are they taking certain tones and pitches out of the environment, forming words with that noise, kind of like they used to do back in the day with old electronic voices, back in the day when they used to use synthetic speech, like before they had the ability just to record voices, certain tones, like it makes me wonder exactly how they're doing that. You guys have any theories on whites that tone and that pitch that they can use?
Tony, if you're cool with this, I'd actually like to address the pacing part of it that we kind of added to it, and then I would like you to speak to the reimagining of how the whole ghost box concept works, because that's where it turns things on its head a little bit, and you were very instrumental in that. So what we think is happening, and what you did with the sound with your foot, that's where early EVP research and direct radio voice evolved from one to the other. Was they used running water or white noise as audio support for something that does not have a larynx or vocal cords to make a mechanical sound wave where we are. So it gives it some kind of tonality through a vibratory rate within the atmosphere. But then they told them that the voices were going to come out of the radios with the advent of the electronics age, and boom, that's exactly what happened. How we think it works is something called stochastic resonance. White noise has every frequency the human can hear from 20 hertz to 20,000. And anything that comes into that and resonates with one of the frequencies within the white noise, they both embolden each other, but the rest of the white noise remains unaffected. So you have a greater signal to noise ratio. And then what was not detectable now becomes detectable. That's how we think it works. I'm going to explain one of the innovations that Lourdes and I brought to this, and then I want Tony to explain one of the ones that he came across, which was phenomenal, and he alluded to a little bit earlier. We had an investigation where we were running direct radio voice to just establish a connection bridge before the event started. Everybody's walking through the location. I'm down there recording, just doing a test run, make sure everything's set right. And later on, I listened to this vocal, and I had said, if you know who I am, go ahead and say it. And I heard on. That was it. When I played the recording back at 50% slowed down, I heard Ron. And then I heard a whole thing that I believe was my mother or my grandmother. Ronnie, it's mom, it's Lucy. I'm connecting this whole thing, which I missed entirely. At 50% slowed down, the speed of the vocal was as clear as I'm pronouncing words now, which means in real time, not only would it have been difficult for my ear to detect it, the human vocal tract, hear me, the human vocal tract is not capable of producing sounds at that speed, let alone, as Lourdes would say, because she's a court reporter and listens to different cadences and people talking over each other, they can't do it without stammering and stuttering. And I don't care if it's a court, I don't care if it's an auctioneer on cocaine. They can't talk that fast.
Exactly. It's absolutely impossible for it to be coming from human vocals. Yeah.
And we don't know if it's being uttered or thought or spoken faster, or if that part of it is the way it's getting to us. The same way cable television has, like Fios uses data transmitted through light on glass, because you don't have the degradation of sound from metal with heat and vibration with coax cable. But with that way, it gets further with no degradation. But when it gets to your house, because there's no processors that are commercial that can process data at the speed of light, it's slowed down to normal electrons. But it gets there fast. So maybe they're coming through the wave functionality of light. When it gets here, we have to do something for it. And what Lourdes and I did was we took live white noise, not a sweep like a ghost box does. We took live white noise at a constant, and we slowed that down so that we would hear more of the words in real time and less of it later on.
And it's interesting that you talk about water too, the water effect. In a lot of recordings, you'll hear that residual noise. It sounds like it's like a electronic sounding, like a water in the background, and then it'll pop up kind of out of nowhere. It'll materialize in the background, and it's a noise that's being produced by no electronic device. So it's really interesting. I always thought there's an absolute science behind this. and it's great that people like you are really looking into it, because I think a lot of people, it's almost like I don't know if they don't give it enough research or what, but there's definitely something going on. I think we've answered that. There's something going on here. You know,
Oh yeah,
I mean, we've people have investigated this phenomenon, and it's interesting to see people get closer to pinpointing the science behind it.
yeah. So we have this whole idea with stochastic resonance and how we think the vocals are using the white noise and all this stuff, and then Tony lays this huge concept down. And I think, and Lordison actually was having the same thought at the same time, and he lays this thing out, and I'm like, holy cow! With taking that same principle and looking at how the ghost box works and what the differences are, and I'm going to hand the torch to him on this because he explained this better than anybody.
Well, if you look back, for people in history, Nikola Tesla said, if you want to understand the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. Well, that was fascinating to me, because what consists of energy, frequency, and vibration? Broadband white noise. It has all three of the things that Tesla said, if you want to understand the universe and how it works and how it operates. So I was drawn to white noise just from that understanding. So I did a test one night, and I may not have been the first person to ever do this, but it was new to me. I never tried it. But I took a sleep machine, which would produce white noise. And I didn't know it at the time, but it wasn't live white noise. It was just a 3-second loop. And I literally asked the question, can you communicate using this white noise? And they replied, accurate, and then so creepy is what it said. Well, not only were they able to answer using that, it embedded onto the chip in the machine, because it was just a recording. So not only did I hear it, it embedded it on the machine. If I grab that machine and play it today using Staticom, that message is still there. Now, I've never tried to go over it. But so then the fact that it worked, I said to Ron, I said, let's see if we can remove the radio. Let's get that out of the skeptic's hands to be able to say, you're picking up straight radio stations. There is no human voice, no word banks, no sound, no nothing. But yet we were able to still get full vocal responses with intelligence, tonality, and vocals. So that's kind of, and the improvements Ron said about everything we did to clear up the voices, to slow them down, because there were times, like he said, they would come in so fast. Your mind couldn't even process what was said, let alone anybody with an actual vocal system be able to speak that fast. So we knew this message was getting to the machine, and same thing with an EVP or any type of ITC, in a method that is different from vocal speech or a physical sound wave that bounces, off walls and will hit every recorder in the room. They're doing it in a way they can leave it on just one machine or multiple or whatever they want to do. But the big hit between what a spirit box produces and what we have now accomplished with Staticom was that using a spirit box, you'd get a word or 2, 3 if you were lucky, but you'd never get a full sentence. And both Ron and I have had conversations that have lasted minutes with full responses. But our theory is that the whole concept behind a spirit box was that the spirits would manipulate the fragments of audio from the radio stations. I no longer believe that, and I don't believe Ron or Lourdes or Cherie do either. They don't use that. They're using white noise. The radio stations interrupt their ability to speak through the white noise, which is why.
I agree with you. Yeah, there was a couple sessions that we were using a spirit box, and the voices that we picked, because we were recording it, it didn't come from the box. It came from the background, like you hear where the voice was coming from, and it was in the background, and it was using that static sound.
You're absolutely correct. And Lourdes said this very well on one of our shows. She said, when we get voices, they're above or below where the radio station voices are coming in, and that is absolutely correct. So they're
Right.
not
Which
yeah,
speaks to that speaks to the stochastic resonance I was talking about, right? When something comes in at a higher or lower decibel level, that's where it's resonating in the white noise. The sweep is what's creating a brevity to the messages. We in no way say that we still have boxes. We know that they work. The methodology absolutely works, but we think that the concept that was originally using the fragments of vocals from the sweep is not how it's done. And when Tony talked about taking away the low-hanging fruit for the cynic kind of stuff too, academia looks at the ghost box as not a legitimate form of ITC for two reasons. They feel like you're audibly distracted too much by a lot of the fragments and blips and sounds from the sweep, and they believe that and I don't agree 100% because I think if it works something with timing and relevance and it's clear enough, I think the boxes work. But they believe that what it does is it removes free will. Because if our sounds and our words have certain allophones and phonemes that are necessary to form certain words in a certain way as building blocks of our language, and they're not in the right place at the right time for them to say the right word in response to you with time and relevance, there's no free will.
Right. 100%.
Okay. Well, here's my thing with the spirit boxes. Again, I've done plenty of investigations where teams have had them. I also know people who long time ago were creating the software for the spirit boxes. And over time, I was made aware that for some people, the software, they were adding certain names, certain phrases, certain things into the name bank or into the
app.
right. And so it was able to be manipulated. Okay, so that was number one. Number two is you would see all of these videos where they're videotaping when they're getting something, and then they translate it on the bottom and put the caption, and nobody ever hears the same thing. Like it is not clear. I'm like, what? I didn't hear that. And it's usually like, I want to kill you. So it's something crazy. Get out. Something crazy. But it's just like, I didn't even hear that. Or they'll say, oh, it said my name. And I'm like, that sounded nothing like your name. But the concept that you guys have, what you're using, I was that's why I guess I was kind of took off guard and blown away a little bit, because the things that you're hearing, if you're listening to the video clips, it's very clear. Now, my question is, since these don't use any kind of data banks or anything like that, is this something that somebody could take and then manipulate?
No. There's no time or opportunity to do so. With Tony, and this is the brilliance of Mr. Rathman, and I don't just say it because he's here. Though it is safer to do so when he's here. Don't get me wrong. No. The brilliance of what he did is that we're creating live white noise. We're generating it in real time right then and there from a device that does not receive or record. Okay. It's immediately piped into the software with the filtration, so there's no time or opportunity for contamination. So the only thing you're left with is the whole whether or not these are warbles and artifacts of sound, which fascinatingly to Tony now, we had someone from academia go, it sounds like you're using word banks and stuff. Are there words and word like an obelisk? Is that kind of, because those are very clear. And we went, no, we're not using that. It's just live white noise, and then we're filtering it. And he goes, oh, well, then it's warbles and artifacts because those aren't words. I went, wait a minute. You asked me word banks. You heard words. Now you don't. Right. Are you sure? You want to flip flop like that? What we're doing essentially is we're taking with the software component of what we do. We're taking the review process of audio capture and we're putting it into the live moment. Because when ITC was created by a German physicist named Ernst Senkowski in the 1980s, it was meant to delineate between EVP, which is record and review, and that was every audible phenomenon at the time, and communication or dialogue with spirit in real time. So when we heard that thing I slowed it down because of that was super fast, but in 50% slow, I heard it. That was the impetus for me to go, well, all the founders were saying that this stuff came in really fast. I missed this whole thing. How much are we missing? Let's take everything from the review process, what people do, right? They denoise it, they amplify it, they slow it down, they present it. We took that and we put it in the live moment to make it what ITC is supposed to be.
Yeah.
All right. Well, This is fascinating. Okay, so guys,
Okay.
if you have questions, go ahead. You're sending them to me private message, but you can put them in the comments, so that way we can put them on the screen. Everybody can see them. But okay, so I have somebody from the UK. This is Ronald, and he is asking, how many investigations have you actually used this technology in, and how often was it correct? Thank you for your question.
Well, I mean, I'll say we started doing this pre-pandemic, and then when you couldn't go out and investigate, we did recorded sittings, and I know Tony's been doing that for like a year or so now. Also, when you do it for research, you don't need a haunted location. We can't call a location haunted purely on anomalous voices. It's not enough. We can get them anywhere. So we've done this over and over and over again in our own private studio spaces, as well as out in locations. I was at the Shanley Hotel in Napanoch, New York last night, doing this. And then again, Tony can speak to the same thing. It's very successful. Words should not be there. There's no data in the white noise. So even when you can't discern what they all say and people go, well, you know, you can't understand all of it. Maybe it's, listen, there should be no words in there. I pay Verizon and I can't understand everything I get through that thing.
Yeah, no joke.
Yeah, that's exactly accurate. And, you know, like Ron said, I mean, we use ours weekly right at home, but we've taken it. The 6 of us were just out in North Carolina at the Montgomery House, which tomorrow night we're going to show that evidence. And there is some amazing stuff in there. So basically the bottom line is, and I'm sure Ron and Lourdes will say the same, but I've never taken it anywhere that it hasn't produced mind-blowing results.
That's amazing.
I love that.
Awesome.
I love that. I saw earlier that somebody was saying that, you know, we should get together and collaborate on an investigation. So I don't see the comment now, but forever put that out there. Actually, that is going to be in the making. We are going to set it up. You guys know I love this stuff, and I am one of those people that, although I love to talk about it on the show, I like to actually be up and personal and be right there and see what we can do. So with everybody knows, when I investigate, I usually just go blindly, go in, just walk around, report what I get, and then go in under investigator, you know, mode, and then see, using equipment or anything else, what we can get to kind of validate what I have picked up on. So actually that will definitely be something that we'll be planning here in the near future. But until then, you know, you guys, but are you guys putting out this just like on social media? You guys do you guys putting it out on a YouTube channel? Like, where, if people want to see this in action, where can they go to see videos?
Tony's house.
Right.
Popcorn. He's got everything.
Yeah. Ron and I both have a combined YouTube channel called Staticom. And if you just go to YouTube and search Staticom, you'll see almost everything that's been of worthy showing on there, except for some things we've held back due to an upcoming documentary we plan to release in the next 30 to 60 days.
Yeah.
Which explains everything Ron and Lourdes did, everything the 4 of us did, and how Staticom came to be today.
Right.
All right. So in your opinion, you know, this is kind of like, again, breakthrough technology for the field, but for an investigator that's watching, using this equipment, how is it going to change their investigation from how they're normally used to investigating? Like, how can it be an asset to them?
They're going to go home happier. Because they heard stuff and they went there to hear stuff and they heard stuff, and that's the goal, and it happens. I think we can get, I know Tony's the same, like we go to an investigation. I used to walk all around and run all kinds of equipment and do all kinds of stuff, and you could send me to a location. I could literally sit there for 7 hours and just run Staticom and just like take a break, come back, do more, because of the fact that somebody or something is answering us in real time that does not have a corporeal presence anywhere in our environment, but somehow hears us and responds with timing and relevance, never gets old. It's fascinating every single time it happens. we had, and I'm going to let Tony tell the story because I think this is great. When he first started doing this stuff, he had gotten a couple of odd messages with something that was alluding to something we were talking about, and then I got a message through running direct radio voice right after that that completely tied into what he was explaining. I'll let him tell it. He tells it way better, but it was crazy.
I'll hold off explaining because I think you have those clips.
Okay.
A lot of what we're talking about are in the clips I sent, and it'll not only explain it, but it'll give what Ron was saying about the difference that it's going to make on investigators is if you're aware that a particular location may have a particular spirit and you know that spirit's name. I mean, Ron, Lourdes, Chris, Audrey, myself, and Cherie did this just the other weekend at the Montgomery house. We knew names. We asked for those names. They answered. Ron and Lourdes had a name that was coming to them through Staticom weeks before they even went, talking about the house, gave his name. And so they started messaging all of us saying, does anybody know this name? And everybody's like, nope, nope, nope. We get into the house. There's a huge photo on the wall, and the name is the name they were given. And he spoke. Nice. He spoke that night.
Wow.
But I'm going to save that for tomorrow night because that's our show.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're going to share some of those videos that we were talking about too. But before we do that, I want to talk, have you really caught any flack or any skepticism on Staticon from people in the field as it's starting to kind of drizzle in and more people are starting to hear about it?
Yeah, but Ron made a point, I don't know, 6 months ago or maybe even longer, maybe a year ago. But when we were working on improving Staticom, getting the vocals as clear and clean as possible, he said we run one risk, and that risk is if it's too good, people won't believe it.
Yeah.
And that is what we are running up against because they don't think it's real. It's real.
That spot on. I appreciate you saying that. I'm writing my 4th book now, and in it, there's a chapter that's basically entitled "You Win and Lose by Knockout." I worked in the fight industry for a long time, and they'd say that you have to win so convincingly to beat the champ, which is not true. That's why they have scorecards. You win a race by a photo finish, you still win, right? But people have this mindset that you have to achieve something beyond question, like just so convincingly you have to knock them out. But then if you knock them out too fast, too good, and then they think, well, something's wrong. It was a mismatch.
It's rigged.
He was paid to take a dive. It's rigged, right? So you have to be at a certain level to achieve the credibility that the skepticism goes, nah, not that. And then when you get there, if you go a little too far, they go, that's fake. They're faking it. That's fraud. They're not.
Right.
So it's like the first thing we realize is that this is about the research for us. There's no commercialization of it. We're not looking to profit off of this thing as any kind of a scheme. And I mean, Lourdes and I were doing this for 3.5 years behind closed doors. Nobody even knew we were doing it. Just purely because we were fascinated with what we saw other people get doing direct radio voice. You're always going to have the people who are going to question it because they don't want the truth. They want to find it. Let that sink in. They want to know what's really going on with all this stuff. But if they don't find it, they're not as quick to digest it because it's not the way they wanted to do it. And look, what we're doing, we didn't bring this out of thin air. This is built upon an older method that just kind of got abandoned. And then we developed it and used some new ways to try to approach it. But that's really, I think, the biggest thing that we run against that Tony brought up is that if it gets to a certain level, then they're like, well, I don't know. But you're always going to have that, so you can't let that contingency be part of any kind of a progressive albatross that just holds you back.
Right.
You can't.
Right.
Now, how is your, like, when you guys are at events and things like that, and your different investigations sharing this technology, or people who are actually with you when you're using it, what has the feedback been from actual people who have used it or are with you.
See, Tony. You go first. You're smiling. Go.
They're absolutely shocked. We've done, I don't know how many live demonstrations with groups that, get involved. We let them ask their own questions. We have another one coming up next weekend in Cave Creek. Can't wait to do at Frontier Town. And people are excited because this is new. They haven't heard it before. This is something that can be reproduced over and over and over. We welcome challenges from people to say, hey, is this happening? Or we think this is, bring it on, because we have gone through this with a fine-tooth comb. And I mean, we've got our theories of what we think's happening, but I can't definitively tell you exactly what's there. There should be, like Ron said, there should be no voices there. There should be no responses. There should be no responses of an intelligent manner to the questions we asked. And how accurate are they? I don't know. I don't want to give a percentage, but it's unbelievable. I mean, it literally, that's my only words for it. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, and what Tony's gonna be doing in a week too is something that we were super happy that we wanted them to be involved with was, and I titled my third book we called it the Digital Seance Initiative, because one of the things we found from doing public events was that when people were scurrying around, looking at their phones, getting coffee, chit-chatting, vocals were coming through and they were missing them. So I wanted the focus of an old-fashioned seance where people are sitting around paying attention and listening. So we realized with the radio as the medium, we would call it the Digital Seance Initiative. And Lourdes and I have done these for almost 2 years and constantly would have people sending us messages. My ex-brother-in-law who passed away in a motorcycle accident came through. Here's his name, all this stuff. That's what Tony's going to be doing next, I believe, right? Is the Digital Seance Initiative. And he's already experienced it when he's had people come to him and they've had those moments. That is the biggest payoff that we see from this, is when we have these moments of closure or these moments of solace that we provide other people at no expense to them paying us, but they experience something that gives them meaning. That's the best. That is our higher purpose for doing this.
Now, I've got a question, guys, real quick. Have you guys ever ran into anything that has audible speech without the aid of a electronic device, where words materialized that you can understand, just like me talking, but there was no aided technology there? Have you guys ever ran into anything like that? And
sure. What you're referring to is what's called direct voice phenomena. And we believe it uses the same theory that we're using with white noise. We are generating it via a machine, but white noise exists in the environment, in a natural environment, and is there. So if spirits can manipulate white noise running through a white noise generator, there's absolutely no reason why that stochastic resonance theory can't be done in the natural environment, where they raise it to the point where signal to noise ratio, their signal is above the noise ratio and you hear it with your own ear.
Yeah, there are some that just seem to be better at it than others, basically, right? Like something like that would be better utilizing what's in the environment. And I mean, when you use a device to flood the environment, it kind of enhances whatever's there. But because I've ran into a couple of situations where things were audible like that, you can understand what they were saying. Yeah, but there was no device.
Right. The big variable in all this stuff is that there's another side to the equation that we have no control over, let alone really a sure idea of how it functions to begin with, too. That's the part that always amazes me when people go, if this is legit, how come you can't always, get everything exactly the way you want it to? Because you're talking about free will and a source of where stuff comes from that we don't have control over. If the circumstances aren't right, maybe it can't work sometimes. That's the same thing you have with cell phone technology. So it's really not,
Sure. And then like you were saying, these devices like ghost boxes, like Echo Box, it limits the vocabulary. It kind of handicaps it there. It can't really it can't say what it really wants to say with just that technology.
Or it may be saying it, but it might be truncating the messages by virtue of the sweeping process. There might be more to it that you're losing.
Because of the actual sweep, you're saying.
Correct.
That's what we believe.
That would make sense, because it's sweeping across all of these these different wavelengths. So yeah, that would make a lot of sense. I mean, I mean, how many investigations have probably all of us been on at one point or another where we've been, sitting in a house that's supposedly haunted, and we really get nothing, or you might get some things, but it's questionable if you could, debunk them. Having something, this technology like this, where you're saying, Tony Amaron, whenever you're taking it somewhere, you're getting something. So you're not walking away saying, "Oh, I took it to this location and nothing." So and my belief is too, because people say all the time. I mean, I just turned 56, and for me, being a psychic medium, first of all, I can walk in anywhere. Sometimes it might be a restaurant, sometimes it's a shopping center. It could be anywhere, and there's spirits around. I also don't believe that it has to be between 12 p.m. and 3 a.m. for you to get anything good. I think you can get things anytime that you actually want, and maybe having something like technology like this, better shows that is so true. I mean, you don't just have to look for a quote unquote haunted location, because I think there's so many places that have never been investigated that are full of history and spirits. I mean, I come across it all the time.
We think like everybody who believes that in the paranormal that life goes on after physical death. We believe that the luminous essence, or what we're communicating with or connecting with, is consciousness. Now, if consciousness continues it, then there are tons of theories and studies in consciousness that talk about what's called the collective unconscious or morphic resonance. So when you're getting communication at the consistency level that Tony portrayed, which is accurate, by the way, you're talking about superluminal contact, which is meaning faster than the speed of light, which technically physics, as we know it, would say is not possible. But if you're talking about being dialed into a collective unconscious that we all have the commonalities of, and then within that, you have your own self-reflective egoic experiences that are your life, right? Then the data or the information or the contact that we're making doesn't need to travel to us. It's already a part of us. So you're culling from something you're connected to, not from something over there that has to get to over here.
Gotcha.
Yep. Great point.
Well, with that being said, let's go ahead and pull some of the clips that we have and share them with everybody, and then we'll come back, and if people have questions, we can get those. If not, you guys can maybe give a little background of what we're looking at. Okay. All right. So I'm gonna take this says Baki, so we're gonna go with this one first.
Spirits, can you please try to communicate with us through this device? Who's watching?
Bachi. That was clear. Do you want us to do the rumble?
Bachi, are you keeping track of what we're doing?
Marcello, can you see us?
Yes.
Thank you. Marcello, you started this method. It's working. Can you please try to communicate with us?
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll say,
that's not a radio station.
No, right. Now I can tell that, I mean, at the very beginning, and obviously this is audio clips that we're uploading and then putting on here. So again, a few of them, it's hard for me to hear exactly what it is saying that we're seeing, but there are others that I clearly, without having to try to adjust anything, very clear what they're saying, especially that last one. It's like,
yeah.
Wow.
If I can jump on something real fast with that, because what you said is so crucial. When we annotate videos, A lot of times people will go, well, you're creating the power of suggestion and trying to make people hear what you hear. Now, what you just said was genuine and honest. You heard some of it, sometimes not all of it. So clearly, this power of suggestion as a debunkery thing has its limitations when the person listening has discernment, responsibility, and understands what they're doing.
Right.
Absolutely.
Well, just
So
like
we
she said,
annotate just to show what we're hearing. This is what we believe the message is. Here it
Right.
is.
Right.
right,
And
and
again,
just like Christina said, that she'll see other clips, spirit boxes, and the words will come up. She's like, I didn't hear that.
yeah.
Putting the
Well,
words
that's-
up doesn't prevent you from hearing what you're going to hear. It was, like Ron said, it was just us showing what we hear. If you disagree, okay.
Correct. But again, the things that I could hear, which were more than not very clear. And I was hearing the exact same thing, you know, that you guys were putting down as well. So
Right.
again,
And you're gonna have levels of audible interpretation based on human hearing, like males, right? High frequency hearing dropped off over 50. You're gonna have those things, but the key thing to remember is what Tony said in the beginning. There's no voices or data in that white noise at all. So even if you don't know what it's saying, it shouldn't be saying.
It
Right.
shouldn't be there. Right.
Right.
Intelligent or something, when actual, intelligent language is being spoken, it's a random noise or a series of sounds.
Exactly.
You can tell there's yeah.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Let's go to our next one. Here we go.
Can you say Tony? Did you just say Rathman? Yep. So you know who I am. Can I know who you are? Yes, sir. Thank you. Who am I speaking to?
Wow. Okay, so
I love that one.
again, very clear, opposed to the first one. You know, you're really hearing exactly what is annotated in there. So again, the clarity is kind of what blows me away. And I think too, again, that clarity is going to be the one kicker that although everybody's like, my gosh, that's amazing, that I think will be the one thing that people are going to stick on of, yeah, we can't get it that clear. How could, anybody else be able to? Got to be something to this. I mean, that's just the way this field is. I swear, you would think that they would be, the floodgates would just be open and people would just be, couldn't wait to get their hands on something like this. But instead, that would be easy. Everybody wants to have the drama to, put somebody else down, and instead of being open to what it may be, because again, this could change investigations for us on a huge scale.
Oh, yeah. There are people who are trying to imitate what we're doing already. There are carbon copies starting to emerge, and that's fine.
But are they going to really be able to, copy what you're doing? Because I see it too. I see it with a lot of the equipment out there. As soon as somebody puts something out there and it's hot, now you've got 6 other different teams that are now creating the same equipment, and but it's not always the same. It might be similar, it might look the same, but what you're getting, unless you're the creator of the original one that everybody's copying, you don't just get it completely right.
Right.
So,
You can't glean 4 years of research off of a couple of videos from watching, and that's what I think is in the attempted mode right now. There are a couple small little subtle changes that Tony and I was like, try this one thing. It'll clear up. It'll take that aquatic noise floor out. And we kept going back and forth. He goes, when I do it, the voices go away. I went, no, let's sit down and go over it, because we have different profiles that we work through that are our own, that we experiment with, but we have 2 that are synonymous between us, so we're always in lockstep. Right. And I went, let's just get on a call and let's put those settings in there. And it was a couple of days before he had a Paracon, and he went, holy shit. It made a difference. And those are the kinds of things somebody watching the video that he posts are never going to be able to just grab that.
Yeah, and you're talking hundreds of knobs of different settings. And literally the one Ron said, move this one and move it this direction. Oh my God, night and day difference.
Wow. Okay, let's see. All right, let's go to the next way. The next one.
Why are you so angry? Not
Not fair, I heard.
You know what we're doing. What is an easier frequency to work on? Stagnation. And sometimes that spirit demon uses method. Yeah, uses method. Accurate. So this frequency is good for you, this one too.
Okay.
I was going to ask if you got any negative.
It's getting better and better. I mean, wow.
That
That's
was
the
a
family hotel. Yeah,
And
that's where I was last night. I was there last night. That was the place I was at. That was 1 minute and 8 seconds on a rant in the same voice.
same.
When I was
voice.
reviewing that, Lourdes was in the other room and she hears me cackling like a school kid at my desk and she goes, "What are you laughing at?" I went, "The guy's still talking."
minute
yeah,
and 8 seconds.
Carol Ann says, wow, I would definitely use this. This is fantastic. Hey, Jackie, nice to see you. Well, yeah. So I will say, though, with that one, 100%, I could hear every single thing that was on the screen. Very clear and precise. But I will also tell you, at the same time, I was also hearing, I mean, the one thing was one very familiar voice just kept coming through. But I was also hearing other voices.
There are,
So
yeah.
it's sounded like you're getting multiple people, and it's just some are a lot stronger and coming through more clearer. But I could hear remnants behind, the other audio of other spirits.
Yeah, when we started doing this and Tony went through the same process growth wise, there were tons of voices and Lourdes goes, "This must be what a medium feels like when she's got all these spirits coming at her from all different angles because there's so much of it." So part of what we did technologically with our settings and stuff was we tried to dial down the noise floor without killing what we wanted. So we did everything from like employing a band pass, which will chop off the higher and lower frequencies to range in a certain area with all these different things. And so far, that's been one of our biggest advancements collectively between the four of us was getting it to where the more prominent vocals come through. But what you just displayed was an educated ear because you're hearing stuff. You've been listening to Phenomena for so long. You're hearing the other voices that are in there. It's hard to squash all of them. A lot of our tech is designed to separate voice from noise. Yep. Where it gets tricky is the noise we're trying to separate from is often also comprised of voice.
Right.
Right. Okay.
Right. But well, at least when I first started, Ron may have had some advancement on it, but I had so many voices coming to me at once. It was insanity. And we had already zeroed in on specific frequencies within. I mean, broadband white noise is 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz. So it's basically every sound the human ear can hear. So people always say to me, well, what frequency are you getting this at? All. I mean, it is all over the boards. So we had to find a way to be able to sift through it and focus to where we were getting the responses we wanted, like Ron said. And that's how we cleared up. And you'll see as you play different clips where we are where we're at on that evolvement. Because today it's clear and we can focus.
Yeah. Well, what Lourdes had said about being a medium, and that's probably how it feels. It's very similar because when I'm listening to that, like I can hear like multiple people trying to come through and say things very urgently at the same time. Mm-hmm. But it is very much like when I get a lot of spirits to come all at one time, kind of bombard me. There's usually one that's like the strongest of the pack. And that spirit wants to get its information out first. And then once it gets the information out, it'll kind of die back and then let others come through. But again, that's exactly what I was picking up is that there was that was a place that everybody wanted to interact with you. There was a lot there that was trying to give information all at the same time. But very, very cool. Yeah, Ned is saying amazingly clear as well. Anne is asking, do you have a link of where this could be purchased? Now, that's even a question. I mean, is this something that you are going to put for sale? Is this something that you're going to share? Is this something you're going to make available to other, teams? Are you going to be picky? I mean, how are people, if they wanted to use this technology, like how could they do that?
It's tricky. We want to. We're not looking to sell it. We don't want it to be boxed up, so to speak. We like the methodology as it exists. It's not finished. Like Tony will always so eloquently say, we still don't know the boundaries of what this can do. So it's hard to sell it and package it when it's still a piece of research in progress. We do want to make it available to other teams, but the first thing we want to do, and we're seeing this already with the carbon copy stuff, is we don't want everything out there flying under the banner of Staticom that has not followed the same protocols we did to get to where we are, that may have things in the equation that would be cynical, low-hanging fruit for discrediting it that we're not aware of, and then they're identifying it, in a marketing sense with what we're doing. I had a guy when we traveled somewhere who was like, "Oh, how much for that case? I'll buy that case for me right now with my stuff in it." I went, "The case, you can have that for $15. What in it stays with me, though. You're not getting what's in it."
Right.
Because it's not what it is. And I'm going to hand it over. This is one of the things that I love about Tony as a person, is that he's probably not only one of the best ghost box builders of our era. He never sold them. He never did it for profit. It was always purely research. And this is taking nothing away from anybody else, because we have in our time some of the most brilliant ghost box builders ever imaginable. But he's probably the only one who did as much as he did for that movement and never, ever for anything more than research. And that to me is huge.
Oh yeah.
Well,
I mean, when the ghost apps, came in, many people who know me know this happened. I actually had somebody I was working with, and we approached somebody in the field about the technology that we had, and you could use different languages and all these different, so you could use it across the different countries and stuff like that. And the person that we went to said, "Well, send it over. Let me see," because he would build apps. So he's like, "Send it over to me." And now, mind you, I knew this guy for probably 10 years. So it wasn't like somebody who I didn't know, somebody I worked with a lot. So I really trusted this person. I'm like, oh, if we need somebody to build an app, this would be the person. So he comes back to me after about a week and he tells us, "No, it would just cost a lot to have to make this, and it wouldn't be worth it." And so it didn't discourage us, because we were like, okay, well, we'll just find somebody else. Maybe he just doesn't have the expertise or the knowledge to do it. Well, the next thing I know, it went to somebody else who was very well known in the field as well, with spirit box things, and they decided to create the app themselves. It started out, I think, at like $49.99 a download. And when it first came out, everybody ordered it. The amount of money that they made off of it, and still make to this day, is huge. But again, it was just based on somebody who we had done all of the back work, went out to try and look for somebody else to help, and then it ended up falling this way. So I could kind of see where, you want to really share the information, so much, and be choosy of who you put it out, especially if it's under Staticom's name. Maybe possibly you guys find, obviously, Tony, we've known each other for a very long time. We know a lot of the same people. You could probably find some really good, authentic teams to be like beta testers for you guys. People that you could kind of trust to not manipulate or try to do something like that. I think that's where you kind of find it, where it's hard, because if you put it out and you're letting people use this and it's under your name, it's kind of like got your integrity and everything behind that name. And then if you get people out there with the editing, you know what I'm saying? Because the editing skills of people nowadays are blow me away. I mean, especially if they're just average Joes. So you could definitely take something like that and maybe manipulate just in editing and would you want to have that, on your brand? I mean, I guess I just see this happen so much that it just makes me question, wonder like these kinds of situations.
Yeah, there's definitely concerns no matter what path we choose. But to reiterate what Ron said, this isn't something we're going to produce and sell just because it wasn't done on Ron and Lourdes' side or Cherie and my side for monetary gain. It was done from the research factor to try to determine how this was occurring and the answers that we've gotten that they've given us. Like one of the first questions that was asked over and over was, how do you hear me when I speak? And I think the clip that answers that, I believe, is in your set tonight. But so it was that understanding. It was that learning. The documentary that I said that's going to come out will give anybody enough information on the process to be able to do it. Now, the only difference will be the years that Staticom has been tweaked and adjusted and formulated. So it's not going to be it's not like a spirit box that you flip the switch, it's on and running. It's a methodology. So it takes that understanding. And the other part that Ron had was that he started out researching people throughout history, Frederick Jurgensen, Marcello Bacci, talking with Dr. Annabelle Cardoso. That is how he got the information of what they had done. And then we moved it forward. So for somebody to just take the components and throw it together, it takes more than that to get it to function to where we have it functioning today.
All right. Let me go ahead and we still have a few more. And again, they just keep getting better and better. So let's just keep going on here.
Hey, Tony's my friend. I would agree. Can you say entity voices?
Wow. Wow.
That was insane.
Now, yeah, and there's a huge story behind this. We were talking about Bacci, and we were trying to figure out how he was doing certain aspects when I got a Facebook message from an unknown, no, not even unknown. I can't remember what it said, unknown maybe. And it was a link. And I was afraid to hit the link. So I went to my computer and I typed it in. It went to a YouTube Bacci video that answered the question Ron and I were going, round and round for like an hour and a half the night before. I had already received the bocce message that you played, one of the first clips.
Right.
One you just played now, Ron received 3-4 days later. And they literally wanted Ron to confirm that I was his friend. And when he did, my direct radio voice at that time just took off. The voices just flooded in because they now had Ron's approval, who they had been speaking with for years, that it was okay to use this method to speak with me, and it just took off.
Well, again, the fact that there is no word bank, again, for the name bocce to come up multiple times after discussing those types of method and researching that, I mean, again, is pretty amazing, because again, you're expecting not to get, you shouldn't be getting anything, but it's not words, it is literally sentences. Like they are literally full-blown sentences at times that are so very clear. So this is amazing. So all right, let's go to the next one.
Spirits, what religious holiday is tomorrow? Easter. Thank you. Yes, tomorrow is Easter. That's Jesus. Yes, you are right. What did Jesus do on that day?
He rose from what?
Death. Have you seen Jesus?
Wow. That's interesting. Hold on. That is definitely interesting, to say the least.
Well, and it speaks to what ITC was truly designed to do, which is two-way communication. And that, even though the answers weren't lengthy, they were communicating, and that process is now happening.
And Stanley's saying, he says, I noticed that the more you listen to these clips, the easier it is to comprehend what they're saying. Now, have you seen that as well? And my other question, sitting there listening to this, is that a lot of times it seems like there's similar voices. Now, are you noticing that certain spirits are coming on a regular basis to interact with you, or do you think it's just random spirits that you're interacting with?
Well, I mean, we don't have a caller ID to necessarily identify unless they tell us who they are. I think sometimes vocals will sound similar because of the stochastic resonance. I think if they come in at a similar frequency, they resonate the same because it's not a vocal cord and a larynx. It's going to sound comparable. We do sometimes get what is very gender indicative, or even age or other. And Tony explains this beautifully, how the amount of information you can glean from the voices, but sometimes there are similarities to them, which I think at its core comes from the fact that it's just a resonance with the white noise kind of it. And then what was the first part of that question was? Remind me real fast, because I had something I wanted to answer for the person.
Not sure. Oh, let's see. It was that the more that you listen to the clips, the easier.
Yes, and that's a commonality with any kind of paranormal audio stuff, because we have in studies of consciousness what's called inborn pattern recognition. That's how we learn visually and audibly. If you got into a flying craft, a helicopter, and went over a landscape, you would have no points of reference. You did it a second time, you start picking out points. Third, fourth time, you start putting together a picture mentally. You're able to start ascertaining things as a collective. So that's how we learn with pattern recognition. And you're talking in this case about things that come in off speed, off cadence, over each other at the same time, multiple voices. So it gets very tricky to do. So there is an educational curve to how you get better at listening to it. And Lourdes, by the way, court reporter by trade, scary at the level that she's able to hear stuff sometimes. I will not talk poorly about her if she's in the house.
I know, for sure.
She
But they
does.
are trained, they're trained. That is part of their training. And again, I think that doing research, it's the same thing. You're constantly learning and you're getting that same
Mhm.
kind of training to pick certain things up. Because again, in that last one with the Easter one, I could hear multiple different things trying to come through at the same time. But again, what we could hear was very clear. So it's definitely whatever you guys are doing to kind of focus on, one certain voice is definitely working. Because again, I can hear a lot of things, but when I can't hear it, it is very clear. So, all right, we've got like 5 more. So I want to get to them for sure. Let's get to the next one.
Hear me speak.
I think you might have missed the beginning question in that one. Maybe not.
Okay, so well, we got a question, and this is from the evidence room. It says, now that there's AI, I'm wondering if we can start creating a device with AI to identify what we cannot, or maybe what we're hearing of certain things. Because again, I could think that, the human hearing, like, again, you can have 5 or 6 people in a room and different people could hear different things. And I will say with this evidence, it is very clear. I don't think that anybody here that's listening is hearing anything different than what is being shown. But do you think that that is like where this might go, where, some type of AI technology would come into play? Or do you think that kind of just muddies the waters for the research you're trying to create?
It would depend on the application that's being used. AI could definitely be used for a variety of things. But in order to identify what's being said, I mean, they have something called a voice print, which means no matter who says it, no matter what tonality, female, male voice, it'll print out that speech by octaves, the way pronunciation is done, and you can match it against what you think you're hearing. Now, could AI be used in the future to be able to voice print something and say, okay, is that exactly what I heard? Yeah, possibly. And there's probably another 100 or 1,000 uses for it that I'm not even aware of yet. But anytime technology advances, the use of it within various applications opens up all the doors. So yes.
Yeah, and there are limitations to the AI as far as like the humanity side of it goes, right? Because AI speaks to the mechanistic ability of processing sound and then interpreting what it is. Like you could explain a cross country drive in terms of mileage, rotations of tires, but it doesn't explain the sentience behind it. It doesn't explain the why and the how and the motivation for doing it. So the humanity part of that is missing, and also it doesn't have. And I think this is something that's a factor in communication, which is metacognition. Like we're aware that we're talking, but you're also aware that you're talking. And those are things that still are outside the scope of what an AI may ever be able to do. I'm not sure, but that's the humanity part of it. But interpretively, to embolden words that may already be there anomalously, that would probably be the one application we would see most immediate. I guess that would be a factor. But as the sole finder, let's say, of any kind of anomalous linguistics,
Probably not. Okay. All right. Well, let's go to our next one.
Hi, Lotus. Hi. How are you? I'm good. I'm glad to hear that you're good. Who's speaking to me? I miss you too, I guess. I don't know who it is. You have to tell me who you are.
You know what I find so fascinating about that one, and we've heard spirits say this before. I'm thirsty or I'm hungry. And I'm thinking you don't have a body. Where's that going? But I don't know. But it was funny. He's like, I'm hungry, Lourdes.
Yeah, and she cooks very well. Let me say that. But so we were in Massachusetts at the Mass Paracon, and so the funny thing is with the I'm staring and I'm looking at your face stuff, that even shows an emotional level to it, because she had just come out of the shower in our hotel room, and I was running stuff just to test it, and then all of a sudden the whole "Hi Lourdes," and she didn't expect an immediate response. And I'm good, babe. Love this bitch. You should have saw her face. She was like, "What?" But that shows the real time dialogue of it.
Yes, and that's what I'm saying. Again, Lourdes is not, again, a common name. You know, so again, for it to come out in that moment when she's coming out and have an interaction, conversation with her directly, again, very interesting, and again, very clear. So love it. All right, guys, let's go to our next one.
That's where I was last night. That's the Shanley.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Why are you with them now?
3 a.m. That's what time it is.
Why are you with them now?
Wow. Yeah, Stanley just said too, amazing when slowed down. I mean, you could hear it just the regular way, but when you slow it down, it is so clear of what you're hearing.
That was just prior to when we started slowing down the white noise in real time, and one of the reasons why I wanted to was because that was something that I thought would make it more attainable to have real time dialogue. So now, when we review, and I think Tony would mirror the same sentiment, we don't really have to slow it down much, if at all, anymore in review, unless it's really fast.
Right.
Right. All right. Looks like we got Sterling in mind with Johnny Zappas next. Let's go.
Somebody say John Ruggiero, please. He's been here before. Could you respect and acknowledge him by saying John Ruggiero?
So what's crazy about that is, and this I like Tony to speak on the theory again behind this when I shut up, which will be soon. is that was Sterling Mine. So that's a former zinc mine. We were well below the surface of the earth, where cell phones, radios, and their signals go to die. You couldn't get anything on a spirit box. People were trying. So we set up down there. Those pictures were actually where I was. We had a power generator we were plugged into, and we were running direct radio voice at the time, that was a vacant station, which nothing. And we had a lot of vocals, a lot of bad words, a lot of specific questions answered and stuff. But John Zaffis, we were hoping was going to show up a lot of time. We were just with him at the Conjuring House a week ago. Lourdes was there. We were there for her birthday weekend that year, and she was hoping he would show up, which sometimes he will for New Jersey paranormal events. So he was kind of on our mind. We were hoping maybe he'd pop in. We asked for John, who runs the event, John Rosario, and they end up coming out with Johnny Zaffis, which again, no voices should even be there, especially under the ground.
Let alone 25 feet under the ground, which tells us that the way that this communication is occurring, first of all, there's no way you'd get a radio wave. Radio waves cannot penetrate rock, earth.
Right.
They can't. So whatever this means of communication is a particle, an atom, some sort of light particle, something that is not bound or obstructed by buildings, ground, and what that is, we're not 100% sure. But the fact that he was the only one who could get communication when every other spirit box, other device died 2 feet into the cave says that we're dealing with something that is not like any other device being used today.
Perfect. All right. Look like you got one last one. Let's get to that one.
All right, spirits, I know you're here. I know you're talking, and I appreciate that very, very much. Can you do me a favor? Can you say Anthony Rathman? Spirits, can you please do me a favor and say for me again, I heard you say it, can you say Anthony Rathman? Thanks, Tony. I heard Anthony, I didn't hear Rathman. Rathman. Did you hear it? Yes. Did you hear it? Dylan didn't hear it. Can you say hello, Dylan? Really loud and really clear. Can you say for me, please? I greatly appreciate it. Can you say hello, Dylan? What day is today, spirits? Do you know? Hello.
I don't know.
I didn't even realize I sent that one, but it shows you the clarity. That was I didn't realize I sent that one. That was by mistake. But it shows you the clarity difference between what we had and what we have today. I mean, you could still hear the responses, but today, none of that ground floor chatter, cracking, we've removed most of that. And
That
so
that totally debunks your suggestibility or whatever theory. It proves to be wrong because I heard a lot that wasn't on the screen. A lot of stuff that wasn't on there.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
I heard a lot of stuff in there. So
yeah, we also didn't pinpoint specific voices yet either. So yeah, you're getting all those other voices hitting you at once. So you're right. There is a ton in there that is not the most upfront voice that's
and there's no power suggestion there. I mean, that debunks that completely.
Correct.
I mean,
Absolutely.
It answered your question like immediately after you asked the question. In a couple of those, and there's quite a bit in there. That was pretty interesting.
And again, for multiple times for it to say Rathman, Tony the Rathman. I mean, again, that's not a regular name. Like again, for it to pop up once, much less multiple times.
Right.
And again, it seems to many times when you're doing these sessions, it seems to know who you are, Tony.
And it was, that may be the most documented word to come from the other side of the veil is Anthony Rathman. it might be. We get it. We get it. We get it here.
Yeah, Anne was saying it's on the EMF scale, just not where we normally look.
Well, so that's probably the interesting thing, and we always try to kind of resurface this concept is when it enters our environment, when it's recorded on our devices, at some point at that juncture, it is in league with laws or theories of physics as we know it or believe them to be. But from where it comes from, there's the supernatural, paranormal, inexplicable part of it. We don't know how, in fact, it's getting to us really does defy many of those laws of physics. And when Tony was speaking to the cave, we don't know if it is the wave function of light, which when it interacts with something, or if it has, again, when I mentioned the collective unconsciousness, if it's part of consciousness and it's everything is of one, like the Akashic records would suggest, then you're looking at, it doesn't have to travel through stone and zinc and all that stuff to get where it is. It is already connected to those things. So that is one of the biggest things that we try to always stay mindful of, is that all these concept of science and how it applies to science and scientific method, all this science, physics, yada, quantum, that's all here. There's an element of it before it gets here that we do not know, that we do not understand, and that we can only speak to our part of it to try to interpretively field it. Like a receiver on a football field. We're trying to catch it and run with it when it gets to us. But how it gets to us is not really in our control as we know it.
This puts it in a more raw level too. The dead is more raw, and a lot of these, classic debunking theories aren't going to work on this. It's more. It can be scientifically looked at more credibly, and that's what is really interesting about this whole thing.
I appreciate you saying that. That's important to us.
Hard data.
Well, I just want to say, I mean, again, I had time before the show to talk to Tony. I've known Tony for a long time. I got to look at the clips that he sent me. So I already was blown away. So I mean that there was nothing. But I'm glad that I was having technical difficulty. This is how crazy it gets on this show, because things happen last minute all the time. Tony sent them to me the other day. Everything was fine. It was working perfectly. Then today before the show, I'm trying to go over the voice clips and there's no audio. I can see the video, but absolutely no audio. And I'm like, what world? I've already checked these before. But mind you, I live and I work in a historical building that's very haunted, that was built like in the 1800s. So they love to interact with me on my show. So I was like, oh yeah, you're gonna play games with me right now. You don't want this to go through. And like literally like 20 minutes before the show was going on, I'm trying to tell Tony, oh my gosh, can't believe it, I cannot get any audio. So I like completely deleted all the files, then re-downloaded them, and then like literally right before we went on the show, they were working. So I'm like, ta-da, we got it. But I'm so glad it did, because again, we could have talked about this. We could have talked about what the Staticon can do, what kind of evidence you guys have obtained, but without really being able to hear it yourself and really understand, because again, I know a lot of people, if they were to just like pop in at the, some point in this show and hear a lot of these things, they're going to say, oh yeah, well, another ghost box, another spirit box.
Everybody says
that is not what this is. And the fact that you're getting such clear communication with zero word banks, again, that's what just blows me away, because it's like everything we've ever seen as far as we're looking at like apps or spirit boxes, they've always got these word banks in that, and so
they're taking another approach and another look at this
yes,
whole concept that's already been there for a while, and perhaps not really analyzed as much as it should have been. Good, yeah, great work, guys. Good work.
No, we appreciate that. The other thing we did was we took the successes of history from European ITC where it was birthed, and we ran with that, because Frank Sumption and the Frank's box was a brilliant offshoot, and it absolutely works. But there's part of me, and this is not going to win me any popularity contests in ITC whatsoever, that thinks that it was somewhat of a derailment of ITC, because what Pure Direct Radio Voice got was not only phenomenal with some of the length of messages, but as Tony pointed out, some of the messages are short. The difference is when you're coming from a research-minded standpoint and you have a short message and another device has a short message, but yours is out of pure white noise with no broadcast, no receiving, no recording. You vetted it, and vetting the authenticity of what you get is important to you if you're doing it for research at any level.
That's part of actual research, though. That's what happens, is that you use data that's already there and use it to gain a better understanding of what's really going on. And people should be all about that. This is scientific. This is a scientific research, and removing what doesn't need to be there. There doesn't need to be that interruption from the actual ghost box. Then why have it in the first place? It's an evolvement of the research, and it should be looked at very positively. But I understand, there's a lot of issues,
I think that you get a lot of jealousy in the field is what happens. Everybody wants to be the person to come out with the next big thing, and it's
everybody
like,
can be a rock star, so.
Yeah, and if they can't do it, then what better is to debunk somebody else who's doing it.
Right. And there's a major difference between debunking and suggesting alternatives.
There you go. Yeah.
Big difference. Debunking gets thrown around like WebMD throws around a headache. It's part of everything. It's not. We know we're going to get criticisms. We know we're going to get critiques and cynicisms and all kinds of stuff like that, besides any things we've had to field so far. But that's because what we're trying to do is different. Now, I'm not talking about the methodology. I'm talking conceptually, right? Because accepted science will put out things like multiple parallel universes, infinite time, dark matters, 10 spatial dimensions, things that are illusory, and there is no actual reviewable evidence to support.
Exactly.
But it doesn't get slings and arrows like the shit we do, because it's not overturning an ideology.
Right.
Which is what we're doing.
Something of this nature will get more credibility from the scientific community. This is something that could be looked at completely different. They're pretty hard on what we do, but it's enough. You can take a look at this, and you can get some information out of it, and you can prove or disprove that something's happening. And when there's no radio signal, something's speaking here. What is it? It's aware of who we are, what we're doing, and so what is this? It's an intelligence that they can't deny exists, and then that'll open up doors, to be accepted, further into this field, because of the lack, because of fear of debunking certain old ideology. People are afraid to go forward, and there's too much concern about, like Christina was saying, who gets the credit, who's the rock star, who gets their 15 minutes, and that needs to be really put on the back burner when it comes to the scientific part of it, or discovery. It's
for the record, Cherie's the rock star.
Well, not everybody being one.
I agree.
You make a great point, though, Chad, and Ron spoke to this earlier. We will probably, when the documentary comes out and the information about exactly There's Sheree. Exactly what we're doing, how we're doing it. You know, we'll welcome scientific comments, suggestions, questions. But what Ron mentioned earlier is that a lot of people don't want the answers. They want to find them themselves. And that, up to this point, has been the struggle that we've been facing.
And there's a lot of people out there that are afraid, you know, they're just afraid of this phenomenon, period. And, you know, it's they want to convince themselves it doesn't exist. And there's a lot in the, you know, actual scientific community that doesn't want to take a look at it. But, you know, you guys are on the right track, though, definitely.
Well, I think what you guys are doing is exactly the way it should be in this field. Is we should be evolving. We should be taking what we already have, we already know, and trying to enhance it or make it better constantly. Till you know,
things a breakthrough, they hide it and they try to monopolize, or they try to, you know, make money off of it. Yeah, it's you guys are really doing a good thing here.
And that's not science when they do that. That's a big difference. People will try to debunk or explain it or shelve it and say it in the name of science. Science, again, method of inquiry, not ideology. You can't shelve it.
Look at what was scientific fact 100 years ago compared to what's scientific fact now. So when people say that they're always evolving, there's things that are absolutely not scientific that people believe was here a while back.
Yeah, that's scientism, not the same thing.
It's an evolving thing, and or it's bringing a better understanding to what's going on.
Well, that's another great point, Chad. And you know, we believe that half of the stuff that we're calling paranormal, hopefully someday will just be normal, because we just finally understood what's happening, how it's occurring. The reason it's called paranormal is because we don't have those answers.
Exactly, and there is something going on here that we can measure with certain instruments. And that you're 100% correct.
And I do want to say, I think that in the paranormal, it is and can be a very exciting time, because we are learning so much so quickly. Things are changing so fast. I can remember 10, 15 years ago, you know, people didn't want to use psychics, you know, in investigations, because you would automatically, they would say, oh, you weren't a legit, you know, team. People also didn't believe in using any of the equipment, that you should just go in with the basic tools from like the beginning, like we're back in the Stone Ages. And so again, we're seeing a lot of changes, especially technology wise, that is seeming to help and enable the contact and the evidence. So, but what I do know, being in the field as long as I have, is that it takes a lot of courage to come out and put something out that you automatically, it's so amazing that you know that because of that, that is going to be the reason you get so much behind it.
Did you guys hear that?
Yeah, I did.
What was it? What exactly was that?
That's over here. A door was opening, so it's.
Oh, okay. Well, that's
we're good on that one.
I'm like, that's some heavy breathing. I don't know what's going on.
No, for real. And it's pretty, you know, and a lot of the criticism comes from within, you know, unfortunately within the field, but
our own field,
but you know, you got to laugh that, you guys kind of shrug that off, and
But you know what I love is the fact that they're doing this for research to better the field, and you know, to expand, you know, again, technology that we all have to use. I love the fact that, I mean, again, and I've known Tony and Sheree for a very, very long time, and I have never seen them ever try to make any money off of any of the research that they're doing.
If you become part of this field of research and with the idea that you're going to make a bunch of money,
but that's not even, again, that's not who we are. And Tony and Sheree are probably two of the most humblest people I have ever met, and so friendly, and they're always open to work with other people. I mean, it's just exactly, if you're going to know people in this field, those are the kind of people that you
are great examples for us to take a look at, and are interested in saying, hey, these guys are good role models for all those.
We appreciate that from folks like you who are in the field. We very much appreciate that. And Christina, I am 1,000% endorsing that idea, because Tony mentioned in the beginning that Lourdes and I resurrected this whole concept of direct radio voice, which led to this. We had no idea when we did that it was going to come to this point. Tony and Cherie are involved in this with us because they belong at the forefront of something like this, because they have the integrity and the consideration for people beyond themselves that is rare to find in any field, in any walk of life. They are, as Chris and Audra from our show also are, truly the best of people. We're super happy that they're involved in this, and it is not by accident. They belong in something like this.
100%. I don't know you and Lourdes, personally, but again, just your energy is amazing. And I know, first of all, Tony wouldn't, match up with anybody who wasn't. So, that speaks volumes of the fact that you guys are working together. And Cherie, yes, absolutely. I owe you a visit. I am definitely going to be out there soon. We are going to get together. We'll do a live show, really put this in the forefront and show what's really going on live. Without just some clips, we'll do it, in person. So I think this will be, will be a great show too. All right, let's see. So thank you very much. Yeah, I think it was a great show tonight too. We'll definitely have them back. And said eliminating anything and you eliminate potential data, and that is so true, so true.
Yep.
Let's see. Cherie says, we will start to charge and put it to the Cherie Rathman Foundation. Well, I know if you did, it would go for good things.
Cherie's got a foundation for anything, whether that be Amazon, but real quickly before I go any further, I just want to say thank you to Ron and Lourdes for the great set of compliments for allowing us to come on board and be a part of this. But the day we heard this operate, I mean, like Ron said, I knew from the beginning this would change the future of paranormal investigation, having built spirit boxes for the last decade. When I heard what this could do, but the real appreciation has to go to Ron and Lourdes. They sat in front of static coming out of a radio for 3 years before voices started to show up. This was before the computer system. This was before the voice extraction and all the other components we have in it now. But the dedication they put in, and for them to be willing to say, okay, we trust you guys, we want you to be included, and to show us what at that point they had already developed and gotten it to that point. They didn't have to do that. So whatever nice things that Ron and Lourdes just stated about Cherie and I send that right back to them, because that's what makes this relationship work as well as it does.
Absolutely. Well, again, great team, I think, and some great evidence coming out from the Staticon, and I am so excited to sit back and watch the research continue and see where you guys can take it from here. So again, I appreciate both of you coming on, taking the time. Ron, I know you were tired and lots been going on, but I really appreciate you guys and actually even staying over, to make sure we could go through all of those amazing clips. So thank you so much. And Tony, as always,
thank you.
I love you.
Right.
So
Sounds
all right,
great. Thank you for having us.
Make sure if you like this show tonight, and I am seeing all the comments, so thank you so much. Yes, this was a great show, great guest. Make sure to go and follow Tony and Ron. If you go to the event page under the discussion, their bios are there with their links. Feel free to go and check out anything that they're looking. Go check out their YouTube and subscribe for sure. So go and look for Staticom. Check out all of probably a lot of the clips that we saw already, probably a whole lot more. Go take a look. Send me some feedback. I really want to know what you guys really think about this discovery, because I'm blown away. So let's get some feedback. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will be back next Sunday, same time. Have a great night, everyone.
See you guys. Have a good one.